Hey, you. Yeah, you. Welcome to Staircase to Nowhere, your ministry and culture podcast. We're about to land the plane on our deconstruction series. Now, I know what you're thinking. We just got started. There's so much that was left unsaid. What about all the philosophical arguments that keep us up at night? What about the crazy stuff in the Old Testament? What about the nature of faith in Jesus? Well, we get it. And that's why we have an email address to provide simple, satisfactory answers to all of your theological and metaphysical quandaries. Not really, but seriously. Before we wrap up, we would love to spend some time responding to your thoughts and questions. What did we miss in our conversation about deconstruction? Is there anything that you've left behind? Are you still wrestling with doubt and uneasiness? Please reach out. You can email us, you can find us on Instagram, and based on what we know about the breakdown of who's listening to this right now, there's probably a good chance you could just send us a text message. No matter how you do it, we'd love to hear from you. We'd love to wrestle with the things that you're wrestling with. But enough of that. Today, we're having a conversation about fundamentalism, and we're joined by a very special guest, my mom. We try to answer some big picture questions regarding Christian fundamentalism and try to navigate why people are drawn to the fundamentalist worldview. We also try to offer some ways forward to those who feel like they've been hurt by fundamentalist communities. If you'd like to get a hold of us, our email's in the show notes. It's staircasepod@gmail.com. You can also find us on Instagram. Thanks so much for listening. Buckle up and enjoy the show.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Staircase to Nowhere. It is so good to be back with all of you here together, all of us in embodied community in the room. Oh, wait, no. Man, too soon
Embodied
again.
online community. Yes.
Ah, man. Well, this is Staircase to Nowhere, a ministry and culture podcast where a group of three boys decide to try to figure out how to fix everything in the world.
Easy.
My name is David. I'm a professor and a hall director in Central Indiana, and I'm joined with our two regular hosts, and we may or may not have a special guest, celebrity guest tonight on our episode.
Who's it going to be? Our first big name.
Yeah, we got a big name. So let's start with whoever wants to go next. Tell us who you are.
Hello, I am Noah. I am a seminary student, which also makes it really easy for me to know the answer of ways to fix everything. Because, I'm learning this stuff right now.
Yeah, in seminary, I'm learning how to fix all the things.
I bet you read a
my
book,
name is,
haven't you?
Yeah, a book or two.
One or two.
My name is Sam, and I'm a director of Street and Community Outreach in Louisville, Kentucky. I have the joy and honor of introducing our guest today, I guess. None other than Miss Jody Hurd, actually.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Mrs. Jody Hurd.
Mrs. Jody
you
Hurd.
heard it here first, folks.
Who
Heard the
just
word.
so happens to be my mom, which is a great connection and a great way to get her on the show. So say hi to everybody, Mom. Say hi.
Hi, everyone. Great to be here. I've listened to every episode.
Oh,
Really?
my good.
Our
Really?
two demographics, moms and 18 to 25-year-old men.
And I just,
Boys and their moms.
yeah, Erica confessed she has not listened to every episode. Like,
What?
I don't, has Caitlin, David, has Caitlin listened to every
no.
episode? No
Judah
way.
has listened to all the episodes.
That's the
Is that
dog.
not-
That's
the
David's
dog.
dog.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Gotta
Yeah,
boost
so-
those numbers.
Okay. Well,
Okay,
Miss Jody, as our biggest fan, which one is your favorite?
Oh, it's going to be this one, of course.
No, I was
Oh.
gonna. You can't say the one that you've guest appeared on. That's not.
Oh,
It's not fair.
Hmm.
This feels silly. This feels like I feel like a child holding up like crayon artwork to my mom and being like, "Which one's your favorite? Which one's your favorite, Mom?"
Well, I will say I have missed them. So it's been a while since you guys have recorded. So
Yeah.
I'm glad you guys
Oh.
are back in action.
Season
Well,
2,
great to be
back in
back.
action.
I'm glad to
Okay,
have
so-
you joining us.
I think everyone, all of our singles of listeners, and the three of us are dying to know. Tell us about baby Sam.
Baby
Oh, goodness.
Sam. Just a little Sam with a hat and a beard.
I was
Sam
born
always,
this way.
always worn a hat, for sure. Definitely always worn a hat. Sam was very shy as a child. Very, very, very shy. did not like to do anything, public speaking, reading out loud, none of that. But in 5th grade, I pushed him a little bit in the puppet ministry. Did not want to do it, but he did it, and he's just been doing it ever since.
It's always the puppets. The puppets get you every time.
Is what turns Sam's life around.
Yes. I speak the truth, right?
What was the name of the puppet,
Why are we
Sam?
here? Why did I invite my mom on
Sam,
the
what
show?
was the name of the puppet?
There was
Their
lots
names
of them.
were so fluid. There were so many puppets.
Yeah.
You want to give us some...
That needs to be a part of my testimony. Is like hand puppets save
it does.
How
I
puppets
think
saved
so.
your public speaking life.
But like you did it like Guido and Mimi and like those puppets.
I was not.
Those are not real names.
Those are.
Yes.
If you're listening to this and you know what those, if you can picture those puppets,
And
we're
Word
very good
Bird?
friends, and I love you and I miss you. Wow, that's crazy. No, those puppets were handled by a real professional, an adult with a degree and
Puppeteering.
yeah, and who that puppeteer went on to be my mom's boss. And
True.
That's
True.
true.
That is
my
true.
mom worked for him. Like
Puppets saved all of your lives.
puppets saved our lives. That
saved
is
our family.
If anyone wants to send a puppet to Sam, you can contact me. I'll give you his address, and we're just gonna do a puppet blessing. We're just gonna send as many puppets as we can to Sam's house.
oh my gosh.
That is crazy, Jody, because Sam now is well known as being a gregarious, outspoken, public speaking person. But it's crazy that 5th grade really was that moment when it all changed.
Yeah, I remember being forced to go to a public speaking workshop thing, and I remember being so afraid and throwing up in the parking lot, and then
I remember that.
being freaked out. This happened twice, actually. And the second time I got I was like a child. I threw up in the parking lot, and then a lady pulled out anointing oil and anointed my head and started, and mom's face.
That's what changed everything.
And I remember I stopped crying because I was more so like, what the heck? What is going on? And, I mean, it was just, I did not know the woman. I was just like freaking out, spazzing out. So it kind of worked because it snapped me out of it, but it was more of like who is this stranger rubbing me with oil? So
she knew what you needed. She knew.
She was right. I can't. What, David? What?
I don't think we could come up with a better opening conversation / segue into tonight's content than this anecdote.
That's true.
That's beautiful. That's true.
And this was not planned.
But the spirit knew.
All right, we'll pause.
Atheists will say it was planned.
Atheists will say it was planned. Oh, that's great, dude.
Checkmate, a fool. All right.
The fool says in his heart there is no God.
Today or tonight, whenever you're listening to this, we're continuing in our welcome. Like you know, we're in season 2, and we're in our deconstruction series.
Heyo.
Tonight,
it's our deconstruction era. If you will.
Sorry, yes, to use what all the cool people say.
That was tonight, not authorized.
Or today, or this morning, whenever you're listening to this, we're recording it at night, so I'm going to probably continue to use that. It's titled "God Said It, I Believe It, and That Settles It." So, do you guys want to kind of introduce what we're talking about tonight?
Yeah, I would.
What is
fundamentalism? What is Christian fundamentalism?
And what does it have to do with puppets and oil?
And what does it have to do with puppets and oil? It all comes back to puppets and oil. Yeah, we want to spend some time, especially at the top of the episode, kind of defining it. We need to note that fundamentalism is more than just not watching SpongeBob and not reading Harry Potter. Both of those, Mom, do you remember giving me those restrictions? As she's nodding her head. That Yeah. Okay. Well, it's more than that. It's more than just not doing something. It's a framework for thinking about faith and theology. There's a lot of people who grew up in fundamentalist households that now consider Christianity to be toxic and even destructive. I think a large part of that is due to some of the fundamentalist worldview that they were presented as kids. So we need to take some time to answer the question, what is fundamentalism? And then we can spend some more time talking about how we arrive at different fundamentalist ideologies. Noah, can I toss it to you just like for some history, a little bit of deeper backstory for what is fundamentalism?
As our resident historian and seminarian,
you get 1 degree, and all of a sudden your head is the size.
It's huge today. Well, fundamentalism came about in Christianity in like the 1920s and 30s. There was this big thing called the modernist fundamentalist controversy.
Get your bingo cards out.
And so basically what happened was modernism was moving across the world. Modernism was this belief that basically miracles can't exist, supernatural isn't real, all that exists is the things you can see. This is when the theory of evolution was going around. So now atheists could be like, oh, like, yeah, there's a natural way that we could all exist, and like we don't need God anymore. And so as that was happening, fundamentalism was also coming up at the same time to say, no, we need to do a hard pass against this and say we're sticking to the fundamentals of the faith. So there's people who are picking apart the Bible, saying it's not true, saying the resurrection can't be real because that's just crazy. And then there were fundamentalists who said, no, this is the way the church has believed for thousands of years. This is how God's revealed himself. We believe this is true. So that was historically. But the word fundamentalism truly has gone out of fashion.
Yes.
Because it doesn't just mean someone who holds the fundamentals of the faith anymore. Now it brings to mind. It's evolved, yeah. So kind of what things would you guys think of if we say fundamentalism?
Radical.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's definitely derogatory. I don't feel like there's a lot of people who identify as like fundamentalist, even if they would hold fundamentalist ideologies, because the word feels dirty now, you know?
Yeah.
Like most people don't write on their name tag at a party like, hey, I'm Chris and I'm a fundamentalist. It's like, you know, they might hold different, you know, theological views or political views or psychological views, but it's just not a fun word anymore.
I would agree with that.
I think of the guy I've seen this clip a few times. It's like, this is my Bible, it's the KJV, and I can correct the Greek with my KJV Bible.
I know the video you're talking about. As someone who went to homeschool conventions as a kid, shout out. There's lots of images that conjure up in my mind of, do you remember the Modest is Hottest booth where they would sell bonnets and large denim coverings?
I actually don't remember that booth. I don't believe I would have stopped at that booth, but I believe that it was there. I do believe Modest is Hottest. I remember that slogan. Yes.
Yeah. So there's a whole host of things, but I am like, we could probably sit around and name like all, you know, here's the shows you couldn't watch, here's the things you couldn't read, here's the stuff you shouldn't do, whatever. But I am interested. And kind of zooming out when we're talking about fundamentalism, there's a quote from Richard Land, he's the former president of the Southern Baptist Convention's Ethics and Religious Liberty Commission. He has this quote where he says, fundamentalism is far more a psychology than a theology. Just kind of drawing this distinction that fundamentalism is more than just like, I believe these specific things about the inerrancy of Scripture, about how old the earth is, about how we view the resurrection. It's not just that. It's also a psychology about how we view the world, how we interact with the Bible, how we interact with people in the broader world. So I would love to it's fun to kind of name these are the fundamentalist, you know, things or actions, but I'm pretty curious to kind of tease out what's the fundamentalist worldview? Like what's the psychology that we're talking about when we say fundamentalism? Can you guys somebody throw a modern example out of maybe some fundamentalist movements?
Kind of anti-science?
Oh, yes.
Going in deep.
Yeah.
Well, I work at a university that deals with research, early stage research. So I see that at just such a different level than I ever have before, and just seeing all that goes into actually getting something out there, and people who just don't believe in science and think it's all rigged. Like, there's no way.
Yeah.
There's no way all that could be rigged. I don't know, but I think that's a big thing, is a big anti-science.
That's funny. You're like, as an insider in the patenting process of biomedicine, it's not rigged.
Well, I mean, even just you saying that you work at a university, I would think that like sometimes it's anti-intellectualism. It's that like the secular universities are Marxist training schools, like that, like
and I do
it's
work
all
at a
bad
secular
out
university.
there. Yeah,
I do.
like only Christian universities are good and safe, and all the like secular state schools, that's where our kids go to lose their faith.
Yeah. I think a glowing example. So, okay, if we're going to try to point people to, I don't want to say the stereotype, but maybe I will. It's the most well-known thing. A lot of people watch the Shiny Happy People documentary that came out on Amazon. That was about the
Duggars.
The Duggars and Bill Gothard. Yes, yeah, all of those things. And yeah, I mean, Mom, you had some interaction with that movement. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, I do remember, my parents going to those, and I believe I even went to one of their conferences or whatnot, and it really was. I remember they focused a lot on values and morals. We had these books with animals that talked about character traits and how, I saw a lot of positive about it. It seemed, it was a good marketing. It was a good sell. When I saw the documentary, I was shocked at all the behind the scenes stuff. It was really kind of disappointing and sickening to me. But if you didn't go too deep with it, it seemed like they offered some pretty good answers on how to live life.
Yeah.
So for those of us who haven't got to see, who don't have Amazon Prime and didn't get to see it, would you want to elaborate for some of us?
Yeah, I'll start. Just like, I only watched one episode because it's all I could stomach. So basically, like, I grew up watching the 19 Kids and Counting, which was on TLC, and it was about the Duggar family. And they had 19 kids because they didn't believe in birth control. And, like, they were Christians. And I remember growing up and saying, like, wow, it's so cool that a Christian family who shares our values is on TV. And, like, they were very, strong complementarian and, like, respecting the father, and, like, the boys were supposed to be this specific way and girls were supposed to be this specific way, and they just all seemed so like well behaved and like happy, and like it was a really fun show to watch on TLC when we were growing up, for sure. And like it felt really like similar to kind of like, I wasn't homeschooled, but I went to Christian school and a lot of my friends were homeschooled, and like I was kind of in those circles as well. And then like just watching now, like one of the older Duggar girls who's married and is not a part of like the same kind of church background that their parents are a part of anymore. Like she just was sharing like how like she experienced her life as this just like emotional abuse of, can't even describe all of it because it just was so upsetting. I don't know what would be like an example.
So like very broad strokes of like the Bill Gothard Basic Institute for like basic life principles, kind of his main teaching. He taught a lot about marriage, like household codes, like how to rear and raise children. Just kind of like really, even I know like David, you didn't grow up in the same kind of world as we did, but just really influential stuff in the 80s and 90s for how evangelicalism presented how the home should function and raising kids should function, almost formulaic. Like if you're having problems with your child, do A, B, and C, and C, D, and E, like the things will follow. Like if you want to have a healthy marriage, this is how you do it. Like
but
and
it all fell under this God, man, wife, children. It was
Yeah.
this ladder.
Yeah.
And that you definitely had to be under these certain rungs and have usurp your authority at those levels.
Yeah.
And if you did that, you would have a good marriage and you would have obedient children.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. So a lot of that, if you're interested in more, like, I mean, it's a hard watch, but it's a really fascinating watch. If you're interested, go watch that. Go check that Shiny Happy People documentary out. Or just call me and I can tell you about what it was like being I'm just kidding. Sorry, Mom. But
You
I'm
turned out pretty good.
yeah, I'm a solid 6. Thanks to that. Thanks to Puppets and
6.5.
Oil. Thanks, Noah. But so those are kind of like the in your face, like these are, I don't want to say stereotypical, but just kind of, that's on the very far end of the spectrum when we're talking about fundamentalist movements. Back in December, there was a New York Times opinion article that David French wrote that really caught my attention. It was really interesting. David French is a opinion columnist. He's a lawyer, conservative thinker, evangelical. But he identifies 3 distinctives in like fundamentalist communities. So kind of teasing out this idea that fundamentalism is kind of more of a psychology than just a theology. These are 3 things that he identifies as a part of different fundamentalist movements that are always present. I want to hear y'all's thoughts on this. So first, he talks about certainty. That certainty is like a pillar of fundamentalism. Number 2, ferocity. And then 3, solidarity. So for the purpose of guiding our conversation, I kind of want to use these distinctives to help us talk about what fundamentalism looks like in Christian communities. So I want to hear from y'all, just to kick it to you guys. What do you think of when you hear of the connection between certainty and fundamentalism? How do you see those things like playing together? What do you feel like is that connection?
Very sure, but to the point of maybe dogmatic. There's not a lot of room to ask questions or even have a one-off. Like, I believe this, but is not really okay. I mean, it's 7 literal days of creation, and you stick to that no matter what. Some things like that.
Yeah, it's kind of like you have to have the whole package, like, right? You can't
Yes.
believe in some parts without others.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the certainty, like, just how much it kind of was instilled in us, like, that we needed to know what we believe and defend what we believe at like 16, 17, 18. You know, like, you need to understand the world. And I just remember like going to Christian university and having friends be like, you think you know the world? You know, and like, you think you understand everything? And I was like, yes, you have to. How can you believe if you don't?
Yeah. I remember as a kid, like in 6th grade, like we had like catechism, like workbooks. And like, I don't remember what it was specifically, but like a catechism about how carbon dating couldn't be trusted because it, like, in trying to prove the age of the earth and stuff. Like, I remember being like in 6th grade and being taught like not to trust carbon dating or something, like just like crazy for,
Sorry.
No, yeah. Well, you're on the podcast because I love you. And
a group counseling session tonight.
I did not teach him that. That was farmed out.
Outsourced. And I'm not here to discuss. I don't know. I couldn't tell you whether or not that's true or not. I just making the point of like, no, what you're saying, like that argument piece of being like, we've got to defend this thing tooth and nail. If somebody comes to you about trying to date fossils with carbon dating, you need to be able to refute them and tell them that's wrong. David French like made this comment in another interview that I thought was along those same line, that fundamentalist like communities, they value argument over inquiry, like, so that kind of the faith is more about defending an argument or passing down like an argument that needs to be defended more than creating genuine inquiry or curiosity about like the things that we're professing to believe, like, you know, the resurrection or like how the resurrection affects us or whatever. But I thought that was really intuitive, that certainty culture creates a culture of argument more than an argument of inquiry, is something that David pointed out. I just thought that was...
Yeah.
I think certainty also leaves no room for doubt or unbelief. And I'm sorry, Noah, but we can't know everything. We don't have it all figured out. Nobody does on
Yeah.
anything, no matter how many degrees they have. So the fact that you have to be certain about everything is an impossible bar that you can never reach. And therefore, if you do ask questions, God said it, I believe it, that settles it. But what if I do have a question? You can't ask that question. So it closes the door for any kind of question. And I think that's where a lot of people have left, because they do have questions, but they didn't have the space and the freedom to ask those questions.
Yeah.
And we are always going to have questions. We're always going to have doubt.
That's good.
Isn't that what faith is? Not knowing? We don't know, right? It's the uncertainty. We don't know. We can never not know. We just believe it. So just that certainty is a door closer for sure.
That's good. I feel like we could camp out on this for a while, but I want to keep kind of pushing a little bit. So, certainty. The second thing that he identifies as ferocity. What is, like? Do you agree with that? Do you disagree with that? What do you think about him pointing out the ferocity connection in fundamentalism?
How are you defining ferocity?
Well, let's define it. Somebody use a computer we're on.
Ferocity is like fierceness, like there's this like kind of a harsh, or like the response can be, I don't know, sharp.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes that's what people got when they asked a question. They asked a question and it's, that's not what we believe, or we're not doing that, or that sort of thing.
Yeah.
I think out of all the words in that list, that's the one that scares me the most, right? Like any group, any religion can become a fundamentalist group, right? Like that's what ISIS is, right? It's Islamic fundamentalism. And when ferocity becomes a core tenet of what you do, that's how you end up blowing up abortion clinics. And so that's what scares me, is if you take it too far one way, with just your interpretation, with certainty, ferocity, like all of that combining together, is where you can do something morally wrong and convinced you're doing it for the right reason.
Yeah.
And it doesn't sound like the way of Jesus. Like he's about, kindness and gentleness. This is ferocity.
Yeah. It sounds like the exact opposite of what we're called to do.
Yeah. And I don't think, David French presents these three. I don't know if they're like, they're not canon. It's just fun it's like a good conversation starter. But I think like ferocity rooted in certainty, like if you really believe that you are absolutely right about everything in the world, down to like the accuracy of carbon dating, all the way to like, every theological viewpoint you hold, then like, I do think the natural, like an outflow of that, your hands are closed so tight to like the things that you believe that like, I'm like, it's silly, but if your hands are closed that tight, like you're holding fists, right? Like that's just like you like have to fight for what you believe. And that's why, like, I think, apologetics, like ministries and like resources were just, I grew up on those things because there was like this real urgency that we had to defend what we believed, like, because what we believed there was, was absolutely unequivocally true. And I hope I don't need to say this, but like, I believe in true things. Like, I'm not like anti, truth or whatever, but we're talking
He's an
like
anti-truther.
He's an anti-truther. He's a fake news. But yeah, like if you hold things so tightly, then you have to respond with ferocity, I think, or you have to defend things kind of aggressively. Does that make sense?
That makes sense.
Do you think?
Sadly, it makes sense.
Yeah. And what? No, what you said is like, or you guys all said, like, it's not the way of Jesus. Like, that's not how. I don't think that's how Jesus like fought his battles and like doing things like and talking to people about this stuff. So let's just go to the last one. Solidarity. They all kind of bleed into each other, but what's the connection between solidarity and fundamentalism? Mom, I might throw it to you a little bit. Like, she's making a funny face. She said, don't. Maybe I can set you up better.
Okay.
If we haven't, The reason you're here is because we would say we grew up in a pretty like fundamentalist circle.
Yeah.
What was it? How would you describe solidarity? Like, unity, like oneness
Community.
with your, unity. Like I'm trying, like just kind of teasing out.
Yeah.
How does fundamentalism create that sense of solidarity in a group?
Well, I think it creates a community and well, you said a oneness, but you just kind of, and it's not a bad thing. That's not a bad thing. Community and all of that is not a bad thing. And I think
Amen.
of all of these, it's maybe the least bad, or it's
Yeah.
the good. It's the good because you're in a community with people that support you, that you can learn together and grow together. The problem with it is there's no hard questions being asked, or you're somewhat in a bubble is what I see some of solidarity as being in a bubble. And sometimes you don't realize it until maybe you're out of that bubble. Like, oh, wait, maybe I should look at this from a different point of view. Maybe this isn't exactly right. I mean, I grew up and I raised my kids with wonderful people who, I cherish to this day that community, and I don't agree with everyone, and I didn't agree with everyone at the time. But I didn't loudly disagree. Kind of kept my disagreements a little bit more to myself because I valued that community. So I saw that in a lot of ways as a really good thing because it is based on relationship, which I think is important in life. Is you need to build on relationship, but you just need to be careful that if you don't check a box, that you get kicked out because you do XYZ or whatever. I mean, because, oh my gosh, what if you get divorced? Hello, who does that? Who wants that? That's my story. It wasn't what I chose. It wasn't it, but it's my story. But, and in some people, I felt I lost a little bit of community because of that. I realized that. And with others, they embraced me during that hard battle. So, it's a mixed bag.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What you touched on, I think, is kind of the thing that even David French is sorry. David's like, huh? It's kind of trying to pull out in his piece of just being like that solidarity thing. Like if you're kind of like, there's kind of no space for you. If you disagree, you're either all in or you're out. Like you can't really hold, you can't have one foot in, one foot out. We have to hold the line really tight. And in these kind of fundamentalist like worldviews, it's either, you're all the way in or you don't have a part here. Like you can't kind of be about this and kind of not. Like what you said, Mom, about like not having space to ask questions or hold a different belief or something. That's the scary
thing. Or even be understood. In a lot of ways, people would say things to me because they didn't know my story. They didn't understand. And I think that's where relationship always comes in as being important. And if you said like you're holding so tight to your beliefs that your fists are up, you can't understand that, life isn't perfect for everybody and things ebb and flow and up and down.
So, we kind of are unpacking this a little bit, but as we continue this conversation, help me and the other listeners understand, like, what is attractive to fundamentalism? Like, why are people drawn to this philosophy and theology and way of viewing the world? What draws people into it?
And I need to say it. My Mom, you said it too. Like, I mean, I'm so thankful for the friends that I had, like the community that I had when I grew up. Like, if people, like, if you identify or maybe you resonate with some of the fundamentalist like ideologies and stuff, like people in fundamentalist camps like are not dumb or like malicious, or like, I think it's easy for people on the outside to paint people as like, oh, you're just I don't know, like you're just a narrow-minded, like uneducated, throw out all the things. And that's just like not true. And I can say that from personal experience. I mean, fundamentalism is a way of making sense of a broken world. Like that's a human, like that's what we're all trying to do wherever you land. They're humans just like you and I. Like, so I don't know. I want to caveat that with saying when we're trying to answer the question, why is it attractive? It's because it's like one of the ways that we're trying to make sense of the world. I would argue it's not. I've kind of in my journey, I don't know. I don't think it's the healthiest way, but it's not like a indefensible position. So I want to just be very clear about that it's not, I don't want to just sit over here and like poo poo on like people that might hold these different views. But yeah, so why is it attractive? Maybe we've touched on some of it. And Mom, I might kind of throw it to you again, and I'll do my best to set up the question well, but, just kind of basically what questions do fundamentalist communities answer? Like in your experience, what's the draw?
You're trying to figure out, like as a new mom, you're trying to figure out, you want to raise your kids the best way that you possibly can. So you read these books and you do these things, and you have these people who say, this is what you do. And your baby will sleep through the night in 6 weeks if you do this. And if you don't, you're doing something wrong, because this is the checklist that you do to guarantee this, this, this. You want to raise your kids to be a very, in a very healthy, productive, you want the best for your family. You want the best for the people that you love. And they say, here's how you do that. These are the values that you can instill. If you teach your girls not to dress in such a way that, guys aren't looking at them and they want to do terrible things to them, then you're protecting your daughters, from the lustful men. I mean, you just have this desire to raise your kids in such a way that gives them the best. And when people present this evidence and saying, this is the best way, it is rooted and grounded in God's word, you're like, okay, I'll try that. I'll do that.
Yeah.
But the problem is it sometimes forgets about relationships. It forgets that your kids are little human beings. I mean, it's not a checklist. It's not, and every person's different. What works for one may not work for the other. It's not as easy as they make it sound like it should be. And so I think you always have to keep in mind your relationship with God and your relation with that person, whether they're 3 years old or 30 years old or whatever. And there's a personal responsibility that I think somehow gets a little bit removed if we're just following these checklists and reading these books and doing what they say we need to do, and not realizing, wait, maybe I should be asking God what I need to do. Maybe I need to be, maybe there's more to it than just some stranger who wrote a book about it.
Yeah, that's interesting, because it almost sounds like a prosperity gospel. It's a promise that this is the way that your family will best operate.
Yeah.
And then it's definitely like a legalistic formula of,
definitely,
character and do this and don't do that. And that's controllable, whereas like the gospel of grace and forgiveness feels really out of control.
And how do you do that? How do you do the gospel of grace and forgiveness? It's way easier if you just tell me to do these 3 things, then my kids will be good.
Yeah, exactly.
And it doesn't work like that.
That is so attractive. Like, can we just all be honest? Like, if you're listening, like that is, if you're having some problem, like whatever, if it's raising kids, if it's like in your career, if it's fine, like whatever, and somebody comes to you and says, well, if you do this, this, and this, like, that's what God has, God has said, if we do this, this, and this, the proper outcomes will happen. Like, that's a really nice, that's a good pitch. Like, it's like, okay. And it like in a way it makes sense. It like makes sense of a world that is broken. And chaotic and stuff. So we don't need to shortchange how attractive it can be. In a way, you're right. It is a prosperity gospel. It might not say like, you'll get a Bentley at the end of all of it, but it might say you'll get kids that go to bed on time, and you'll get a marriage that's going to last 50, 60, 70 years or something, like, which is great.
Who doesn't want that, right?
Yeah, who doesn't want that? That's a huge draw. Like answers to complicated questions. That's a really big draw. Mom, I think you hit on something earlier. Like what's the poll? And you've been talking about community, and we on this podcast every week are like, community is the thing that we need as human beings. Like,
yes,
we're all wired for it. We need it. We need in-person, real relationships in our lives. As we record on Zoom calls, we say that every week. But yeah, what do you guys like? How would you? Can we just kick around and tease out the draw of community in like fundamentalism? Like, what does fundamentalism have to offer if you're searching for community?
You know where they stand.
Yeah.
Yeah, we know we all agree on stuff.
Mm-hmm. And we want to be with people that we agree with, not people we disagree with. I mean, why would we join somebody if we don't agree with them? I mean, it's just getting in this same lane and living it's trying to find that bubble and live in that bubble, which may not be the best really thing to do. Because you work with people who live outside your bubble, and your neighbors are not in your bubble. And then we tend to just not go to, those people that aren't in our bubble.
Yeah, no, it's a great way to totally neglect the Great Commission and like be about engaging the world by just kind of hiding in our own little places.
But at the same time, it's important to have those people. It's a balance, like all of things. You do need to have those people where you feel safe, but you also need to have those people where you can maybe, bring into your world and go out into. So it's not a checklist. It's not.
Yeah.
Oh man, I thought at the end of this we were going to offer our foolproof solution.
That's the end. We end with a checklist of like, here's how you fix it.
Love God, love others. That's all you have to do.
And buy Sam's book.
And go searching.
Sam, I'm so excited for your book.
If you find my book on Amazon, I'll give you $1,000. Yeah. And this is nothing new, right? Like this is not a new phenomenon. I don't think it's even going out on a limb. Like the Pharisees were a great direct link to like what religious fundamentalism looked like in Jesus's time. Like a group of folks who were like, we forgot the word of God and it sent us into exile. We are never doing that again. We want to put up as many guardrails as we can to be sure we never, we follow the law. We do what the Lord has commanded us, and we do not fall into sin. Like that's what the Pharisees were trying to do. But in doing so, they lost sight of the bigger redemptive story, and were intrigued by Jesus because they were like, you're about the text. Like you get it. You're versed in the prophets. You believe this word, you do it. But Jesus had something unique to bring that was love. And that was more than just religious guardrails and more than just something. It was something freeing. It was something liberating. So yeah, we're not having a new conversation. Jesus dialogued with these things in his day. And he had some harsh things to say, but to those groups, but also was like gracious to them because he kept talking to them and he kept dialoguing with them. And he was like concerned for their, concerned for their spiritual lives. And one of them,
they're the teachers of Israel. They don't understand.
Yeah. That's good stuff.
So how do we recover, right? Like, how do we go about having conversations with, we're in the middle of our deconstruction era. We're talking about what it looks like to, for people stepping away, moving away from things. So, where do we go from here? How do we have these conversations well? How do we recover?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, Mom, can you just tell everybody how to fix it? real quick?
Yeah.
Kind. Be kind.
Oh, well.
All
Move
right.
to
Well, thanks
Louisville.
for listening to today's episode.
Yeah. No. What were you going to say? I'm sorry.
Well, yeah, if we're going to talk about recovering, I just want to remind everyone, like, we're not talking about recovering from holding to the truths of the Bible. Like,
Right.
holding to the truths of the Bible as the church has historically understood it, that's good, right?
Yeah.
So that we're all for, yes. But,
Yes.
like, this kind of fundamentalism of, like, the in-group behavior of this and this and this, and it's certain, and if you do it exactly this way, it will arrive this way, and it's usually tied up with these really restrictive gender stuff. That's what we're talking about recovering from.
Yeah.
So kind of what would it look like to come out of a circle like that with your faith, and how can we encourage people that have left from that?
Yeah. Thank you for saying that, Noah.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
But I do think we need to be kind to people and not throwing darts at them or give them room for their doubt, and also affirm them in their doubt. I mean, because we have it too, but realizing we don't have the answers, we're never going to have the answers, and just kind of walking through in a very loving community, relationship driven way that isn't a preacher on a street corner with their finger pointing at them. That's not going to work.
No, that's true, and that makes me think of like moments when I've been in a conversation with someone and I felt this internal need to, like, oh, I have to tell them this, like I have to tell them this right answer, because like, if I don't say this, but then also recognizing like, how do I actually be present to this person in front of me and push them and encourage them towards Jesus, but I don't need to necessarily bring them a canned response, like, how do I actually, sometimes I think that in talking with one person, am actually trying to like
talk
defend to somebody else. Exactly. I'm
Yeah.
trying to talk to the
yeah.
world instead of like, or I'm trying to talk to people from like my in-group. I'm trying to prove that I know, I'm like, but in that moment, like, I just need to be there with that person and like talk to them and to their concern instead of giving them the, life starts at conception, whatever it is,
Yeah. Yeah. No, like adding to that, I'm thinking about like me being in those conversations and not thinking about how can I be loving and winsome and kind to the person in front of me, but I'm playing like, what do I need to say so I can tell my Christian friends what I said to this person so they can be like proud of me, of like the answer that I gave. And it's not actually, I think I've grown out of that, but that was, man, I remember being in those conversations where I was like working with somebody and they'd said something and I'd be like, oh, I know. Boy, oh boy, I'm locked and loaded. I'm about to rip this person a new one. And I'm like, well, actually, this, or that. And the person's just kind of like, what are you talking about? I have no interest in hearing what you just said. But then I can go back to my group and be like, guess what, guys? I was in a conversation with my coworker and they asked about, the historicity of the New Testament. And I got to tell them about the Dead Sea Scrolls and I wrecked them. And we're all like high-fiving. Meanwhile, that person is like, what? Like, what a weirdo. But that's funny. Dang. Yeah, that's how it was framed. But
David,
how do we do better?
I want to ask David, do you feel like you encounter people who came out of these kind of church backgrounds? Like, what experiences have you had?
You're at college.
Yeah, I think I've got people in my life who I definitely know experience this. In fact, even my distant relative that I'm friends with on Facebook probably still is in this camp. Like,
you usually can tell because of Facebook.
Yeah, I the other day he like posted on Facebook like, how do I get Pokemon Gym not at my church? And I messaged him. I said, hey, have you ever thought about like talking to those kids playing Pokemon, outside your church? And he's like, they're playing with pocket demons.
I hope
said-
you're listening, cousin, because I love you.
No, I get you. I grew up similar.
Yeah.
And like I like we had talked about, like my family was very protective, and there's this difference between
Yeah.
being protective and understanding the truth, right? And so
Mm.
I think a lot of people may not have like the check mark for fundamentalism, like they get each thing
Yeah.
done, but a lot of people, like we have talked about, like the three of us are not parents, but we understand parenting is hard, right? And we like people just want to do what's best for their kids, right? And we're all just trying to figure out how to get from point A to point B. And so I think I know a lot of people who are like, trying and growing, and like that's the beauty of life is like I don't hold the exact same theology and philosophy I did as an 18-year-old man, and that's what Noah was inferring as well. And I think that's a good thing, right? Like there are a few things we need to be dogmatic on, right? Like the Jesus is alive, and he's
Jesus
seated at
is
the right hand of
alive.
the Father.
Yes. Amen.
But there are things that we need to have grace with, grace and truth, right? That's the beauty, is grace and truth. And so I don't know. That's kind of some half thoughts I have regarding this conversation.
No,
I think with fundamentalism, grace is absent.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think that's a big thing. Grace and mercy is absent.
And I think a very important thing to talk about as Christians, just because this group maybe doesn't act in gracious and loving ways, that doesn't give us permission to meet that same energy. Like Jesus has called us to be gracious and kind and patient with those people too. Like the rules don't change for when we're engaging with other people. Like the means do not justify the ends in Christian life. It's about, or like the ends don't justify the means in Christian life. Like it's all about the means. It's how we live out like this faith. So I think, like there's lots I feel like I could say and want to say to folks, but I think one thing we got to say off the jump is like, if you feel like you've been hurt by fundamentalism, but you still want to follow Jesus, like Jesus, I know this is hard, but like is still calling you to be loving and forgiving and kind, to pray for your enemies, and to like, that's a hard lift, but that's the cross that we may have to carry. So I just need to like note that we don't fight fire with fire. Like we are still called to be gracious and loving and kind and patient people in these spaces. I just think that's important to voice. Like we need to do that. I think it would be good. Noah, did you just raise your hand?
Yeah, I got something. Like, I think that part of this recovery process is why this is a ministry and culture podcast. Like, it's kind of being able to parse out what practices are actually from the Bible, and then what things are just like a culture. What things are kind of the mixture of like 1950s American gender roles plus Southern plus, some nationalism. Like, what's the culture versus what's actually the Bible? Because I think that like what Miss Jody was sharing with like the way that they taught this is the way the family should go. It sounded like that's what the Bible says.
Right.
And they definitely, proof text some things. But I don't think that like the household codes from the Bible are like saying that's exactly what a family looks like for all of eternity. Like I think that it's like was written to a specific context then, and we're living in a specific context now, and like we are applying and reapplying God's truths in our context. So that's not a cultural relativism, everything isn't real, but it's a like as you're recovering, you can look and see like what actually was from the Bible and like what is just kind of someone's interpretation that made sense in that culture. But that's not really forever in all times and places. That's not even the way people are following Jesus around the world or in this place. That's just a very specific thing that you saw. And that doesn't mean that is the Christian faith.
Yeah. If you grew up in these spaces, if you had a question, it was met with probably like maybe an answer. Just straight up, here's the answer. This is what we believe. I would just love to invite you or let you know that there's communities where when you come with a question, they might even respond with, "That's a great question. Like, let's wrestle with that." Instead of just providing you the prepackaged answer for why this community believes. Because I think that's really important in our faith journeys. I've heard it said, and I really believe it's true. Like, one of the major reasons people walk away is because of unexpressed doubt. Like, they don't feel like they have the permission to doubt things, so they just walk away. And like, yeah, I think my heart really goes out for people in those spaces and in those mindsets where they felt like, you know what, I just need to throw it all away because I have these questions, I have these experiences, and there was never space for me to really wrestle with it. So that space probably doesn't exist. And I just want to say that's not true. Like, at minimum, I hope this conversation is evidence that, like, there's people out there asking the questions, dialoguing about this, trying to be honest about what we know and what we aren't sure if we know or not. Trying to be honest about the hard things and being, I don't know. But yeah, if you're maybe feel like, yeah, I feel like I'm kind of a recovering fundamentalist, or I have some scars from these communities. I would really encourage you to be a curious person about the faith that maybe you've walked away from. Because I believe that Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life. And if we ask honest questions and are really inquisitive and wrestle with God, it's going to point us back to Jesus. Like, I have enough faith in him that if we're honest in our relationship with him, in our prayers and and we bring ourselves to him, he's not going to answer every question, but he's going to be sufficient. And yeah, so if you have been hurt by fundamentalism, I just encourage you to, like, discover that curiosity again and know that there's communities where you can be curious and you can ask questions and you can disagree about stuff and still move forward and not be kicked out or demonized and ostracized for having different views on things. So that's some thoughts and heartbeat for those of you maybe listening. So, yeah.
Well, we missed it last week, but we want to make sure to get our staircase to nowhere. So, what do we do with this? Where do we go from here? How do we move forward with this? What's your tie it all up nice and neat for us?
I'll steal some of my mom's haha, but I'll just say be kind and ask questions. Be kind and curious. And that's my staircase, my little blurb.
Be present to the person in front of you instead of trying to rehearse your argument to them.
That one cuts deep for me, Noah.
I would say, with those that have questions, you don't have to have the answers. You can just be present with them in that moment. It's okay not to have the answers.
Man, mom's preaching.
Hold grace and truth well.
Mm-hmm. Full of grace and truth. Who was that?
Who said that?
And faith and doubt can be together.
And faith and yeah.
Can have both.
Thank you, Jody, for joining us on this episode. It was so good to hear from someone who's a little further along on the journey and has had some awesome experience. So thank you for joining us tonight. It's been great to have this conversation. If you have any thoughts, please, you can comment on Spotify or you can email us at staircasepod. We'd love to hear, maybe you went through this and you're trying to figure it out yourself, or you've got questions.
Yeah.
So we'd love to be able to talk with you. You can also check us out on Instagram.
I said we'd love to do a question and response episode eventually. So if you do another plug, send your questions because we want to hear them and maybe talk about them.
So we thank you for giving us an hour of your day, and check us out next week. We're going to continue some awesome conversations. Thank you all, and make good choices. Bye.
Go get your puppets and oil.